November is National Epilepsy Awareness Month. I've met so many inspiring women through the Epilepsy Advocate Program, and Epilepsy Awareness Month is a great opportunity to spotlight a very special family. Amy Wyatt is here to talk about her son Spencer. He was diagnosed with epilepsy at age 3 and is now 11 years old. His engaging personality draws you into whatever topic he's into at the moment: video games, sports, dogs. He also has a serious type of seizure, which we'll hear about in a bit. Amy will explain how she and her husband Greg and their daughter Mary Lindsay carefully monitor Spencer and help him succeed. Amy wants other caregivers to know they are not alone. As an epilepsy advocate, she shares her daily challenges and suggestions for finding balance so that other caregivers can benefit from her experience. That's why she's here with us today. Welcome, Amy.
Thanks, Beth. I'm excited to be here with you.
Can you tell us a little bit about the day Spencer was born?
Well, the day Spencer was born wasn't like a typical birth. He was actually not crying when he was born, and I can remember having this picture in my head of what it was going to be like, and it didn't turn out that way. And I asked the nurse over and over again, why isn't he crying? You know, what's wrong? Well, they quickly whisked him away from my room to a neonatal intensive care unit and came back and informed my husband and I that he had some damage during the birthing process from asphyxia, which is lack of oxygen, and that he had some brain damage and some liver damage and lung damage and several major organs not functioning properly because of the distress and the asphyxia. They worked with him to try to stabilize him, and probably about 18 hours after he was born, a nurse in the unit observed what she thought was a seizure. They medicated him for that, and he went into cardiac arrest. So they came down to get us after they had been working with him for a little while. They had basically exhausted their rescue measures and told us that if we wanted the opportunity to hold him, that we would have to do that. And so here he was, a day old, and they were giving me the opportunity to hold him for the first and last time. They basically just wanted us to be able to say goodbye. His heart rate had actually gotten to about 18 beats per minute, and they were waiting on it to stop so they could officially call a time of death. So as we were holding him, a doctor kept coming in to check his heart rate to see if it had stopped, and the third time I knew something was different because he wanted to take him from my arms, and I remember just crying out, please don't take him. I don't care if his heart stopped, I just want to hold him a little longer. And he said, Miss White, you don't understand. He said, his heart hasn't stopped, it started. It's 150 beats per minute, and we need to see, you know, what's going on. So they began to work with him and got him, you know, stabilized, and came back and felt like he's doing great. And we really felt like we experienced a miracle that day. They kept us for about 2 weeks running all types of tests to see what happened, and released us at the end of 2 weeks, telling us that he had suffered a stroke during the event that had happened, and that it affected his speech and motor skills, and that only time would tell if he would ever be able to walk or talk. So we started speech, occupational, and physical therapy really early, and did that until he was about 3 years old, and he was pretty much caught up completely with everything by the time he was 3. We had a kind of interesting experience around birth in the first few years of his life.
You certainly did, and my heart goes out to you. As a nurse, my specialty is maternal fetal medicine, so I know how difficult that must have been for you and your family. And after a few years, Spencer was diagnosed with epilepsy. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, actually, he didn't have another seizure. He had that first one at birth, and was until he was 3, until he had his next seizure. I was pregnant with my second child, and we were actually in the waiting room for my first ultrasound appointment, and he began to behave really strangely, like he was trying to talk to us, and he couldn't say anything, and then his right arm began to jerk, and his mouth began to twitch, and then he threw up, and we were in a doctor's office, but they didn't seem to know what was happening, so they called an ambulance, and we went to the hospital, and they said that he was having a seizure. He seized the entire way to the hospital, and after the seizure, he was in a postictal state, which is really scary too, sometimes as scary as the seizure itself. He couldn't use his right arm, and the right side of his face was drawn down. But after the medications wore off and the seizure was over, he went back to normal. So we went home, and a few months later, it happened again. And again, this seizure lasted a good long time, and we found out that he has a condition known as status epilepticus, which is when the seizure can last more than 30 minutes, or you have recurrent seizures, and it can be a life-threatening condition where the brain just will not stop seizing. And so after his second seizure when we went to the hospital was when he was officially diagnosed with epilepsy.